Mateo was 20 years old and he was slowly becoming invisible inside his own life. He came from a financially stable family, comfortable home, steady future, no real problems anyone could point to, but none of it felt like his. Most days he stayed in his room, sleeping too long, thinking too little, playing games until morning blurred into afternoon. His parents called it laziness, but deep down it felt heavier than that, like something inside him had quietly given up without telling anyone. They didn't push too hard, not yet. Until one afternoon. "Can you bring this food to your grandparents?" his mother asked, placing a packed container on the table. "It's not far," his father added. "Just walk, you need to go out." Mateo didn't argue, he never really did. So he took the food and left. The walk was ordinary. Warm air, familiar streets, the dull comfort of a place he had passed through his whole life without really noticing it. His thoughts drifted the way they always did, back to his bed, his screen, the quiet escape waiting for him at home. Deliver this, go back, sleep again. That was the plan. Until he passed a house. A man was washing a car in the open garage. Around 30 years old, strong posture, steady hands, water glinting off the surface of the vehicle as it dripped onto the concrete. Mateo didn't mean to look. But the man looked back first. Their eyes met. And the man smiled. It wasn't a stranger's smile. It wasn't polite or casual. It was warm, almost intimate in a way Mateo couldn't understand, like recognition, like memory, like something already shared between them. Mateo slowed down without realizing it. A strange pressure formed in his chest. He didn't know this man. He was sure of it. And yet, for a split second it felt like the man knew everything about him, not just his face but something deeper, something that should not have been visible in a single glance. Mateo almost stopped. Almost spoke. But instead he looked away. "You're just tired," he told himself. And kept walking. The feeling didn't leave him right away. It followed him quietly as he reached the road. As he adjusted the food in his hands. As he thought again about going home, locking his door and disappearing into games and sleep. Simple life. No effort. No weight. Just survival. He stepped off the curb. He never saw the car coming. It didn't feel dramatic at first, just a sudden shift in sound, a rising tension in the air. Then tires screeching. Too late to react. Mateo turned. Impact. And everything broke. There was no clear transition. No tunnel, no light. Just absence. Then, he opened his eyes. But the world was wrong. The air felt older, thicker, like time itself had changed texture. Sounds surrounded him, music, laughter, distant shouting, celebration. He pushed himself up slowly. His hands touched dirt instead of concrete. He froze. This wasn't his street. This wasn't his time. He looked around. And his breath caught. The city was the same. But not. Old wooden structures stood where modern buildings should be, colorful banners stretched across narrow streets. People moved in clothes from another era. There were carnival rides, games, and stalls filled with noise and life. A fiesta. Like something from old family stories, something his grandmother used to describe when barangays still celebrated like the whole world was one neighborhood. Mateo's heartbeat rose sharply. This can't be real. Then, a voice answered. Calm, unhurried, not human in tone but not distant either. You are not in your present time. Mateo spun around. No one. Then the air shifted. And something appeared. Not a person. Not a shape that stayed consistent. More like a presence choosing how to be seen. Mateo stepped back instinctively. What are you? He asked, voice tight. I am what remains between timelines, it said. A pause. You have been displaced. His stomach dropped. Displaced, I died. No. Immediate. Not yet. The sounds of the fiesta continued behind him like nothing had changed, like the world didn't care that reality had just split open. Mateo's voice shook slightly. Then where am I? The presence tilted as if studying him. You are in a fractured version of your own world. That doesn't explain anything. It explains enough for you to continue. Silence. Mateo clenched his fists. Send me back. A pause. You cannot return unless you complete a mission. His breathing tightened. What mission? The entity's voice lowered slightly. There is a man named Mateo. The world felt like it paused with the name. Mateo frowned. May. No. A beat. A different Mateo. The air felt heavier now. If he continues on his path, he will become the cause of a collapse in your future. Mateo's voice sharpened. I don't even know him. The entity replied simply. You have already seen him. And suddenly, Mateo remembered. The man. The car wash. That smile. That strange feeling he couldn't explain. His chest tightened. Why me, he whispered. Because you still care enough to stop it. A pause. And because your life depends on him not breaking. Mateo swallowed. And if I refuse? The answer came without emotion. Then you will eventually cease to exist. Silence. Heavy, final. Mateo looked around at the strange version of his city, the noise, the lights, the life that wasn't his. Then back at the empty space where the present stood. He exhaled slowly. Fine, he said. What do I do? The entity answered. You will meet him again. And when you do, stay. The air shifted. And everything went dark. Mateo woke up screaming. Not because of pain, but because of confusion. Cold tiles under his hands. A ceiling he didn't recognize. A smell of soap, steam, and something faintly metallic in the air. He blinked hard. He was inside a bathroom. A shower was running nearby. And behind the frosted glass, someone was there. Male, older, around 30. Naked. Mateo's brain froze. What the hell? The shower stopped. A second of silence. Then the glass door slid open. The man stepped out. And everything went wrong. Their eyes met instantly. The man's expression shifted from confusion to pure shock, then anger. Who the hell are you? Mateo panicked. I am not a stalker. But the man was already moving. Fast. He grabbed Mateo by the collar and shoved him out of the bathroom so hard he nearly tripped. Get out of my house. I can explain, Mateo shouted. I was sent here. That's what stalkers always say, the man snapped. The door slammed. Mateo ended up outside the house within minutes. No shoes, no plan, no idea where he was. Just standing there. Humiliated and confused, replaying everything. The car. The crash. The entity. The mission. And now this disaster. The man inside clearly wasn't going to listen. So Mateo stayed. He had nowhere else to go. Hours passed. The sun shifted. Neighbors walked by and stared at him like he was some kind of stray animal. Mateo didn't move. He just waited. Until finally, the door opened again. The man stepped out. Same face, same intensity. He looked even more tired now. You're still here, he asked sharply. Mateo nodded. I told you I don't have anywhere to go. A pause. The man studied him. Not kindly, not warmly. Carefully. You're crazy, he muttered. Probably, Mateo said honestly. That made the man pause. Just slightly. A sigh. Fine, he said at last, one night then you leave. Mateo blinked. Really? Don't push it. Inside the house was messy. Not dirty, just neglected. Stacks of papers, half-finished bottles, clothes thrown where they shouldn't be. Like someone living too fast to care about order. The man tossed him a blanket. You sleep on the couch. Mateo nodded. He didn't argue. He never really did. That night they barely spoke. But Mateo watched him. The man moved like someone constantly carrying weight he didn't talk about. Irritable, sharp, restless. But not cruel. Just lost in a way Mateo understood too well. Days turned into an arrangement. Mateo stayed. Cleaning, cooking, fixing what he could. The man never asked his name properly. He just called him you or kid. But Mateo stayed anyway. Because he remembered the mission. Help this man. Save the future. The man's name, he eventually learned, was Mateo. But everyone called him Mateo, like it was heavier than a name should be. They clashed constantly. You're doing it wrong. You don't even try to understand how things work here. You're in my house, don't act like you own it. And Mateo would answer quietly, I'm not trying to own anything. That usually made him angrier. But slowly something changed. Not kindness. Not trust. Something more uncomfortable than that. Familiarity. Like they were learning each other's patterns without meaning to. Mateo learned when John would drink too much. John learned when silence meant Mateo was about to leave the room. Neither of them acknowledged it. But it was there. Growing. One afternoon, Mateo overheard something. John speaking with a neighbor. A mention of a girl. Julia. And something in his tone made Mateo's stomach tighten. That name mattered. He didn't know how. But the mission echoed in his mind. Prevent the collapse. Prevent him from becoming that man. That night Mateo didn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen instead, staring at the dim light. When John walked in he paused. Why are you still awake? Mateo hesitated. Then said carefully. Who is Julia? A long silence. John's expression changed just slightly. Guarded now. None of your business. That should have ended it. But something in Mateo pushed him. Is she why you're like this? A sharp look. Like what? Mateo swallowed. Like you're already running away from something. Silence again. Longer this time. Then John turned away. Go to sleep. But he didn't sound angry. Just tired. And for the first time, Mateo realized something that made his chest tighten. This wasn't just a mission. This man wasn't just a target to fix. He was someone who felt too real. Too close. Too familiar in a way Mateo couldn't explain. Like the smile from before the crash. Hadn't been the first time they had met. Just the first time Mateo remembered it. The house changed after Louis arrived. Not physically. Emotionally. Louis walked in like he already belonged there, easy smile, careless confidence, eyes that always lingered a little too long on Mateo. Still here, Louis teased the first time they met, you must really like him. Mateo didn't answer. But John Mateo did. Don't start trouble. Louis only laughed. That was the problem. He always laughed like nothing mattered. At first Louis visited occasionally. Then more often. Then without warning he was just there. Sitting on their couch, touching their things, talking too loudly in a house that had learned silence. And Mateo noticed something worse. John hated it. Not openly. But in the way his jaw tightened. In the way he spoke less when Louis was around. In the way his eyes kept drifting, always drifting toward Mateo instead of Louis. One afternoon, Louis stayed behind after John left. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Louis leaned back on the couch. You know, he said casually, he gets weird when you're around me. Mateo frowned, he doesn't. Louis smirked. Oh, he does. A pause. Then Louis moved closer. Too close. Mateo stood up immediately, don't. But Louis didn't stop. Instead he reached out. And kissed him. It was light at first. Testing. Then it lingered. Mateo froze. He didn't respond. He didn't know how. And just then, the door slammed open. Silence shattered. John stood there. And everything in his face went cold. The punch came instantly. Louis hit the floor. Get out, John shouted. Louis wiped his mouth, laughing even as he stood. Relax, I was just. Get out. This time he listened. He left. But the house didn't return to normal. Because John turned to him. And for the first time, he wasn't just angry. He was hurt. What were you doing? He snapped. Mateo blinked. I didn't. I told you to stay away from him. I didn't ask for that. A sharp silence. Then John stepped closer. Then why didn't you push him away? Mateo froze. Because he didn't know how to answer that. In that silence. Made everything worse. John's expression tightened. You really are impossible, he muttered. Then walked away. They didn't speak for days. Not properly. Only short words, cold routines, empty rooms. And Mateo felt it. That strange weight again. Not just mission pressure. Something else. Something personal. something he didn't have a name for yet. Then came the night everything broke. John didn't come home. Mateo waited. And waited. Hours passed. The house felt bigger without him. Too quiet. Too final. By midnight, Mateo couldn't take it anymore. He went outside. Found the nearest park. Sat under a tree. And waited there until his thoughts became heavier than the night itself. Near dawn. Footsteps. John appeared. Shaky. Breathing uneven. Eyes red. And for the first time, he looked scared. I almost did it, he said. Mateo stood immediately. Did what? A pause. Then it came out like it hurt to say. Julia. Silence. I went there, he continued, voice breaking slightly. I was going to do it, I don't even know why, everything felt wrong inside my head. Mateo couldn't speak. John swallowed hard. But I stopped. A shaky breath. Because I saw you. That hit harder than anything else. I don't understand, Mateo whispered. I don't either, John admitted. Then softer. I came home and you weren't there. A pause. I thought you left. Mateo froze. Something in his chest cracked. I was just here, he said quietly. John laughed weakly through exhaustion. Yeah, I know. Silence again. Then John stepped closer. I don't know what you are to me, he said, but I can't lose you. Mateo's breath stopped. Because that wasn't part of the mission script anymore. That wasn't fate. That was something else entirely. Mateo stepped forward. He stopped himself. Then corrected it. I don't think I can leave either. A pause. Then, John reached out first. And this time the touch didn't feel accidental. It felt like surrender. They kissed. Not rushed. Not unsure. Real. But peace never lasts long. Footsteps. A shout. You. Julia's father, Ronnie, appeared with Julia behind him, shaking, crying. The moment shattered instantly. You think you can touch my daughter and walk away? Before anyone could react. He swung. John took the hits without fighting back. Mateo rushed in immediately. Stop, please, he didn't. It took everything to pull them apart. And when it finally stopped, nothing felt resolved. Only heavier. That night something changed in all of them. Ronnie didn't press further. Julia was taken away quietly. And Mateo realized something terrifying. The future was still not safe. But the man in front of him was no longer the same man he was sent to fix. Because he wasn't just broken anymore. He was human. And worse, he was attached to Mateo now. Days later they tried to rebuild. Small things first. Meals together. Short conversations. Staying in the same room without tension exploding immediately. And for a moment, it almost felt like it could work. Like they could survive this strange, fractured timeline together. Then the day came. The sky was clear. The air too calm. They went to a park. A simple picnic. No words about the past, no talk of the future. Just silence that didn't hurt for once. John lay down, resting his head on Mateo's lap. And smiled. You're warm, he said softly. Mateo almost laughed. That's your conclusion. Yeah. A pause. Then, I think I could stay like this forever. Mateo didn't answer. Because something inside him already knew. Forever wasn't part of this world. John began to fade first. Not violently. Not suddenly. Slowly. Like dust breaking apart into light. Mateo froze. Wait, what? John blinked up at him. Confused. Then realizing. Oh. A small broken laugh. So this is it. Mateo shook his head. No, don't, please. John reached up. Tried to touch him. But his hand passed through. I guess I finally get it, he whispered. Mateo's voice broke. Mateo. John smiled faintly. You came at the wrong time, he said softly. And then, he was gone. Mateo woke up in a hospital bed. Machines beeping. White ceiling. His mother crying beside him. His father gripping his hand tightly. You're awake, his mother whispered. But Mateo wasn't listening. Because he remembered everything. The house. The fights. The kiss. The smile. Mateo. And at the edge of his memory, he saw him again. The man washing the car. Smiling. Like he had always known this would happen. Mateo tried to sit up immediately. His body failed him. Weak. Recovering. But his voice broke through anyway. I need to find him. His mother cried harder. His father called for a doctor. But Mateo didn't care. Because for the first time, he wasn't tired anymore. He was certain. I promised, he whispered. I'm going back. And far away. Somewhere between timelines. Something listened. Recovery took longer than Mateo expected. His body healed faster than his mind. Doctors called it shock. His parents called it exhaustion. No one could explain why he sometimes woke up crying without remembering the dream that caused it. But Mateo remembered everything. He just couldn't say it out loud without sounding insane. A man from another timeline, a fractured city, a mission, a love that shouldn't have existed. And a promise he couldn't break. I'll find you, he kept whispering to himself at night. Not like a wish. Like a fact. The first time he saw him again, it didn't feel real. Mateo was walking home alone from a routine checkup when he passed a familiar street. A house. A garage. A man washing a car. For a moment, Mateo thought his mind was playing tricks on him. But then the man looked up. And smiled. Exactly like before. Not new. Not unfamiliar. Like time had simply paused and resumed without asking permission. Mateo stopped walking. His breath caught. John, he said quietly. The man froze. The hose slipped slightly from his hand. Water splashed onto the concrete. And for the first time, John didn't look confused. He looked like someone who had been waiting too long. You're late, he said softly. Mateo laughed once, breathless. I almost died. A pause. Then John's expression tightened slightly. Again. Mateo stepped closer. I remember everything. That was enough. The hose dropped completely. The silence between them wasn't empty this time. It was full. Of everything they had lived through in a world that no longer existed. John wiped his hands on a towel slowly. That wasn't supposed to happen, he said. Mateo shook his head. I don't care. A beat. Then softer. I kept my promise. John looked at him for a long time. Then sighed. Of course you did. They did hug right away. They didn't kiss. Not at first. Because something had shifted. The boy who once needed saving was now standing in front of a man who wasn't supposed to remember him. And yet did. Completely. I thought I lost you, Mateo said quietly. John exhaled. You did. A pause. Then almost bitter. Just not permanently. That night Mateo stayed. Not because he was asked. Because he refused to leave. They sat on the edge of a small room in silence, the kind that no longer felt uncomfortable. Only heavy. Only real. You're younger, John said eventually. Mateo blinked. Yeah. A pause. Obviously. John looked at him more directly. How much younger? Mateo hesitated. 20 years. Silence. Then a quiet laugh from John. That's ridiculous. Mateo frowned. You're the one I fell in love with. That shut him up instantly. John stood up, turning away. This is a bad idea, he muttered. Mateo didn't move. It already happened. Another pause. Then, I'm not your future, John said. Mateo stood now too. No, he said. You were my past, my present, and somehow still here. A beat. I don't care what time thinks. John finally looked at him again. This time without distance. Without defense. Just exhaustion. You're still a kid, he said softly. Mateo shook his head. I'm not the same kid who found you. A pause. Then quieter. You changed me. That landed differently. Heavier. More dangerous. More real. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then John stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Like approaching something fragile that might disappear again. You shouldn't be here, he said. Mateo looked up at him. I know. A pause. But I still came back. Silence stretched. Then, John reached out first. Not sudden. Not desperate. Intentional. His hand touched Mateo's face like he was confirming something real. Warm. Present. Alive. You're still you, he murmured. Mateo nodded slightly. I never stopped being yours, he said. That was the breaking point. The kiss this time wasn't a memory. It wasn't a fracture of time. It was now. But reality doesn't let things stay simple. The next morning, Mateo's father found them. The reaction wasn't subtle. What the hell is this? Silence. John stepped back slightly, but didn't deny anything. Mateo stood his ground. His father looked between them. Confusion first. Then realization. Then anger. He's older than you, his father said sharply. Mateo didn't flinch. I know. That's not normal. I didn't meet him normally. That made everything worse. John finally spoke. Quiet. Controlled. I didn't plan for this either. A pause. Then softer. But I'm not letting him go again. That night Mateo and John sat outside the house. Distance from the shouting. From judgment. From everything trying to separate them again. You realize how impossible this is, John said. Mateo nodded. Yeah. A bit. But I already survived impossible once. He looked at him. So did you. John let out a slow breath. You're serious. Mateo smiled faintly. I've never been more serious in my life. A long silence. Then, John leaned his head slightly back. 20 years, he repeated. Mateo shrugged. I don't feel it. A pause. Then John muttered. Of course you don't. But there was no anger in it. Only resignation. And something softer underneath. Something dangerously close to acceptance. Mateo shifted closer. So what now? John looked at him. Long. Hard. Then finally. We figure it out. A pause. And this time. His voice lowered slightly. You're not leaving first. And for the first time since the crash. Time didn't feel like something trying to erase them. Just something they were finally surviving together.